Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles.
Damn harder. Vivian's moans echoed from the bedroom, and Damien's hand froze on the door handle. Baby, your husband really went to New York on business? The man's heavy breathing. That idiot auditor? He takes half a day just to check Excel. You think he can find out about us? Ridiculous. Damien silently stepped back. His phone recording already started. 6 years of audit work had taught him the most important lesson. Evidence decides everything. What made it even more ironic was that just yesterday, Vivian's father Edmund's funeral had ended, and Vivian couldn't wait to kick her own mother Margaret out of the mansion. He calmly left the apartment, found a coffee shop to sit down, and opened his laptop to log into the family cloud storage. His fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up their joint account records. Interesting. He sneered at the numbers on the screen. $3 million vanished without a trace. Damien took a deep breath, his fingers sliding across the transfer records displayed on the screen, his eyes cold as a blade. Dear Vivian, you probably don't know that you didn't just marry an auditor, but the best fraud tracker in the entire company. He clicked on another account, seeing Vivian's frequent fund transfers over the past 6 weeks. Numbers precise to the minute arranged into a perfect chain of evidence. Each transfer like a slap across Vivian's face. 3 years of marriage, 1 funeral, 260 minutes of sex recordings. Damien whispered to himself. Looks like my wife is not only a whore, but also a whore eager to spread her sheets over her father's coffin. He pulled out his phone and called his boss. Harrison, I need another week off. Some unexpected situation at home. No problem, Damien. You handled that fraud case so beautifully last time. The company owes you a vacation. Damien hung up and began systematically planning his next move. As an auditor, he knew the importance of planning and precision. He wouldn't angrily rush home to confront Vivian. That was amateur behavior. No, what he would do was let Vivian and her lover walk step by step into his carefully designed trap while they were completely unprepared. 3 hours later, when Vivian returned home, Damien was calmly reviewing documents at the dining table, his expression so calm as if nothing had happened. Honey, you're home so early today. Vivian wore a perfect smile, coming over to kiss his cheek. I thought you were going on a business trip for a week? Damien noticed her perfume smell had obviously changed. This was some kind of men's cologne scent, and there was a faint tobacco smell in her hair, though Vivian never smoked. These details were like a poorly done accounting ledger, full of loopholes. Cancelled at the last minute. Damien answered casually, Looks like you had a good time? Oh, just went shopping with friends. Vivian said casually, then looked at the documents on the table. What's this? Dad's estate documents. Exactly. Damien closed the file folder. Margaret just called. Said you kicked her out of the house? Vivian's expression stiffened for a moment, then returned to normal. I was just executing according to Dad's will. Mom has her own property. Damien noticed her habit of her right eye twitching slightly when she lied. What a clumsy performance. He nodded, not refuting. As an auditor, he knew when to shut up and collect evidence, and when to reveal his cards. And now it was obviously the former. What do you want to eat? I can order takeout, he asked, his tone so gentle it surprised even himself. Vivian breathed a sigh of relief. How about Chinese food? I want to eat from that new Sichuan restaurant. Good idea. Damien picked up his phone, while sneering inwardly. Enjoy your last supper, bitch. That evening, Vivian announced she needed to work overtime to handle some estate documents. Damien smiled as he watched her leave. As soon as the door closed, he immediately began his investigation. He remembered Edmund gripping his hand before dying, saying weakly but firmly, Take care of Margaret. The ledgers will tell you the truth. Damien opened the scanned copies of Edmund's ledgers that Edmund had given him before his death, and began checking each transaction line by line. As someone who dealt with numbers every day, he could read stories from seemingly ordinary data. Damn, this woman is even more ruthless than I imagined. Damien looked at the materials in his hand, couldn't help but curse. He discovered that Vivian not only kicked her stepmother Margaret out of the house, but also secretly modified the estate documents. She appropriated most of the property that originally belonged to Margaret. Worse still, he found that large sums of money had been transferred out of his and Vivian's joint accounts over the past 3 weeks, right during Edmund's critical illness. Damien calmly traced the money flow and found they eventually entered an offshore company called Thomas Holdings. He searched for information about this company and found it was established only 3 months ago. The registrant was a person named Alexander Hayes. Alexander Hayes. Damien murmured. The name was familiar. Suddenly, he remembered. This was exactly the lawyer handling Edmund's estate. I see. Lawyer and wife teaming up. What a classic combination. Damien sneered and continued investigating. He hacked into Vivian's email. The password was her birthday plus their wedding anniversary. How ironic. He found numerous intimate emails between her and Alexander, as well as their detailed plans for jointly plotting how to modify the will and transfer assets. Just as he was thinking about his next step, the doorbell rang. Damien opened the door to see Edmund's old butler Winston. This old man who had followed Edmund for over 30 years looked exhausted. Winston? So late. Mr. Damien, I must see you. Winston looked around, lowering his voice. Miss Vivian isn't home, is she? Damien shook his head and invited him in. Don't worry. She's with her new friend tonight. He sneered. Winston looked somewhat confused but didn't pursue the matter. He pulled out a USB drive from his pocket. Mr. Edmund gave this to me before he died. He said if Mrs. Margaret was kicked out of the house, I should give this to you. Damien inserted the USB drive and found only an encrypted file and a photo inside. The photo showed young Edmund and Margaret, with their first apartment in the background. Mr. Edmund said the password was the audit principle you told him when you first met. Damien thought for a moment and entered. Numbers don't lie, people do. The file opened, containing Edmund's handwritten letter. Damien, if you're reading this letter, it means my worries have come true. Vivian has been spoiled by me since childhood. I'm afraid she'll lose herself in the face of money. My formal will has a hidden clause. If Vivian kicks Margaret out of the house within a year of my death, all property will transfer to Margaret, with you as the trustee. This clause is hidden in the digital coding of the asset inventory. Only a careful auditor like you could discover it. Protect Margaret and save Vivian too. Don't let money destroy her. Damien put down the letter, a cold smile spreading across his lips. It seems my dear wife is not only a whore, but also an idiot. He turned to Winston. Do you know what other leverage Vivian has? About her lover or other things? Winston hesitated. I'm not sure if I should say. Winston, Damien's eyes became sharp. Vivian not only betrayed Edmund's trust, but also betrayed her mother and husband. If you know something, now is the time to speak up. Winston took a deep breath. Miss Vivian. She has an improper relationship with lawyer Alexander. I suspect they forged the will documents together, and she plans to divorce you after inheriting all the estate. Damien nodded. This was consistent with his findings. His fingers flew across the laptop keyboard, pulling up a string of codes and data. Look here, he pointed to the numbers on the screen. These transfers all point to the same offshore account. And this account's beneficiary is a shell company, and the actual controller of this company is Alexander Hayes. Winston looked at the screen in surprise. Exactly Miss Vivian's lawyer, Damien sneered. Looks like Vivian and her lawyer lover have been planning this for a long time. He clicked on another file. And here's a copy of mine and Vivian's prenuptial agreement. Someone tampered with it. The signature is forged. The phone ringing interrupted his thoughts. It was Margaret. Damien. I don't know who else to turn to. Vivian just sent a lawyer to make me sign a document, giving up all rights Edmund left me. Margaret, listen to me. Damien's voice was firm and calm. Don't sign any damn document. Those bastards want to scam you. Give me 3 days. I'll make them regret being born into this world. After hanging up, Damien's expression became cold. He turned to Winston. I need your help. We're going to set a trap for Vivian and her lover. What should I do? Winston asked. First, you need to continue pretending to be obedient to Vivian, but secretly record all her instructions and actions. Second, Damien took out a small recording device. I need you to put this in Edmund's study. That's where Vivian and Alexander often meet. Finally, he took out a document from the drawer. This is a fake asset list, deliberately made with some obvious errors. You need to make sure Vivian sees it. Winston took the device and document. You want to lure her into the trap? Damien showed an almost cruel smile. Exactly. Greedy people always can't resist taking advantage when they see wrong numbers. And I just need more evidence of her attempting fraud. After Winston left, Damien began formulating a detailed action plan. He opened a special spreadsheet, listing every action that needed to be completed in the next 3 days, precise to the hour. Unlike other cuckolded husbands, he didn't angrily throw things or cry. Instead, he felt a calm focus like handling a particularly complex audit case. Vivian and Alexander thought they were smart, but they forgot one thing. No one understands how to find hidden truths better than an auditor. Over the next few days, Damien acted as usual, the gentle, trusting auditor husband. Meanwhile, he and Winston secretly acted, collecting evidence and building an invisible net. He used wiretapping devices to record multiple conversations between Vivian and Alexander. The content was disgusting. They not only planned how to drain Edmund's estate, but also discussed how to divide Damien's property after the divorce. That nerd doesn't even know we're sleeping together. You think he'll discover we're transferring funds? Vivian mocked in the recording. Impossible, Alexander confidently answered. The offshore accounts we use even the FBI can't trace. Damien listened to these recordings, his face expressionless, but his eyes grew colder and colder. He contacted a college classmate, Julian, now a special investigator with the National Financial Crime Investigation Bureau. Julian, I need your help, but not official action. What's up, buddy? I need to know about a lawyer named Alexander Hayes. I suspect he's involved in money laundering activities. Julian was silent for a while. Coincidentally, this name has recently appeared on our watch list. He has connections with several known money laundering organizations. Why are you interested in him? Personal reasons. Damien answered briefly. I can provide some evidence of his activities, but I need to know more background. Understood. I'll see what I can help with. But Damien, don't do anything stupid. Don't worry. I'm only interested in numbers, not blood. Damien answered calmly. Friday night, Vivian returned home wearing a sexy black dress, carrying 2 bottles of expensive red wine. Her face showed excitement Damien had never seen before, her eyes sparkling. Honey, we should celebrate, she said cheerfully. The probate court agreed to expedite the processing of Dad's estate distribution. Damien smiled and took the wine. That's great. You worked hard. Vivian approached him, her fingers sliding suggestively across his chest. I was thinking, we should plan a trip, maybe to the Maldives? Just the two of us. Damien knew she was lying. According to his investigation, Vivian had already booked a Bahamas trip with Alexander, planning to fly immediately after getting the inheritance. Sounds great, Damien responded easily, while adding in his mind, you greedy bitch. That night, Vivian suggested celebrating and started undressing Damien. Damien smiled and picked up his wine glass. Wait a moment. Let me take a shower first. In the bathroom, Damien looked at himself in the mirror, his eyes cold. He had arranged everything. Winston would accidentally see Vivian and Alexander at a coffee shop tomorrow, then immediately notify Damien. This would let him coincidentally catch them. He returned to the bedroom, deciding to give Vivian a performance she would never forget. You're so beautiful tonight, he said softly, caressing Vivian's cheek. I'm so lucky to marry you. Vivian showed a smug smile. I love you too, honey. When she turned to get a condom, Damien's eyes became cold, like looking at a company's books about to be audited for major fraud. He knew Vivian was taking birth control pills behind his back. She never wanted children. That was just another lie to gain his trust. The next day, Damien accidentally ran into Vivian and lawyer Alexander's private meeting at the coffee shop. He pretended to be surprised and hurt, while Vivian frantically explained this was just a work meeting. "Of course, honey," Damien nodded understandingly. "I know estate matters are complicated." Alexander looked relieved. "Damien, we were discussing the final document details." "Oh, speaking of documents," Damien said casually, "I found some interesting things." He took out several papers from his briefcase. Edmund's original will and the current version have some differences. Vivian's face immediately turned pale. Alexander nervously started coughing. "Probably just ordinary clerical errors." Damien smiled, his eyes cold as ice. "I'm sure a professional lawyer like Alexander will handle it properly, right?" Of course," Alexander stammered. "I'll check it." Damien got up to leave. "Oh right, Vivian." He turned around, his voice gentle but with bone-chilling coldness. "Remember to delete those inappropriate photos on your phone. If your phone gets lost, how embarrassing that would be." Vivian's face turned from pale to ashen. She knew Damien was referring to her intimate photos with Alexander. Damien left the coffee shop and called Margaret. "Margaret, remember tomorrow's 10 a.m. hearing. Bring the document I gave you. Don't be nervous. Follow the plan." When he returned home, Damien found Vivian frantically searching for something. Seeing him, she forced a smile. "Looking for something?" Damien asked. "Nothing. Just some old documents." Vivian answered perfunctorily. Damien knew what she was looking for, her correspondence with Alexander. Too bad those things were already in his hands, including those text messages and photos she thought she had deleted from her phone. "Need help?" he asked friendly, enjoying Vivian's unease. "No need." Vivian smiled reluctantly. "Could you get me a glass of water?" Damien walked to the kitchen, hearing Vivian quickly making a phone call. "Alexander, we have trouble. He knows something." "No, I'm not sure how much he knows." "Damn it. I can't find those photos." "Tomorrow's hearing?" "Of course we continue. Everything goes according to plan." Damien's lips curved slightly upward. He prepared a glass of water with colorless, tasteless laxatives added. Vivian was destined to have an unforgettable night tonight, and tomorrow's hearing, she would face an even greater disaster. The next day, the final estate distribution hearing was held at the law firm. Vivian looked haggard, obviously hadn't slept well last night, but she still wore a carefully chosen black suit, trying to maintain a dignified image. Alexander stood beside her, constantly wiping sweat. Margaret also attended, sitting in the corner, looking tired but determined. Vivian's lawyer began reading the estate distribution plan. According to the modified will Vivian provided, Margaret would only receive a small cash compensation. All other assets, including the mansion worth millions, would go to Vivian. Just as the lawyer was about to have all parties sign, Damien stood up. "Before signing, I have some materials that need to be submitted to the hearing officer." Vivian nervously looked at him. "Damien? What materials?" Damien didn't answer her, but handed a thick file folder to the hearing officer. "This is Edmund's true testamentary intent and related evidence." The hearing officer opened the file, his brow furrowing deeper and deeper. "What does this mean, Mr. Damien?" "This means," Damien's voice was calm but firm, "the will version Vivian provided has been tampered with. The original will contains a special clause. If Vivian kicks Margaret out of the house within a year of Edmund's death, all inheritance will transfer to Margaret." The meeting room erupted in chaos. Vivian's face instantly turned ashen. Alexander kept shaking his head, as if trying to deny everything. "This is nonsense," Vivian screamed. "Dad would never do this." Damien opened his laptop and connected it to the meeting room's projector. "Please allow me to present the evidence." The screen showed scanned copies of Edmund's ledgers and Damien's professional analysis. Edmund was a shrewd businessman. He left coded information in the ledgers. These seemingly ordinary numbers are actually a cipher only professional auditors could discover. He demonstrated the decoding process, then played recorded evidence of Vivian kicking out Margaret, secretly recorded by Winston. "Fuck!" Vivian suddenly exploded. You have no right to spy on me. Oh, but I have the right to track the joint property my wife stole. Damien sneered. Then he showed more shocking evidence. Intimate photos of Vivian and Alexander, their email correspondence about tampering with the will together, and Vivian's complete bank records of transferring assets. Finally, Damien opened the last file, his voice carrying bone-deep coldness. This is Vivian's email planning to divorce me immediately after inheriting the estate, and her complete records of transferring our joint property. Look at this conversation. Once we get the money, dump that idiot auditor, he's useless except for accounting. Damien looked directly into Vivian's eyes. Honey, you were wrong. I don't just do accounting. I'm also particularly good at catching fraudsters like you. The meeting room fell into deadly silence. Vivian's face changed from pale to iron gray. Her lawyer Alexander looked like he was about to faint. Margaret looked at Damien, her eyes full of gratitude and shock. The hearing officer cleared his throat. Given this new evidence, we need to suspend today's hearing for further investigation. Mr. Damien, are you willing to cooperate with the investigation as a formal witness? Of course, Damien nodded. I've prepared all original documents and legal affidavits. Oh, and evidence of Vivian and Alexander's adultery, for use in divorce proceedings. Vivian suddenly stood up and rushed toward Damien. You bastard! You ruined everything. She raised her hand to slap Damien, but Damien easily caught her wrist. Adding assault charges? Wise choice, Vivian. Vivian collapsed screaming. Alexander tried to hold her back, but it was too late. The entire meeting room witnessed her losing control. Calm down, Vivian, Damien sneered. You said I only know accounting. Now I've calculated everything crystal clear. He released her wrist. By the way, you're in Alexander's bedroom performance. The video is very clear. I give it, 3 points out of 10. Vivian's eyes widened, almost fainting. Alexander's face turned pale, hastily explaining to the hearing officer that this was a misunderstanding. After the meeting ended, Damien walked to Margaret's side. We won at least the first round. Edmund's will be re-examined. You won't lose anything. Margaret tearfully gripped his hand. Thank you, Damien. Edmund said you were a good man. He was right. Damien smiled. I just did the right thing. Honestly, exposing that pair of scumbags felt really fucking good. That evening, Damien returned home to find Vivian frantically packing. Her makeup was smeared from crying, looking both angry and terrified. What are you doing? He asked calmly, leaning against the doorframe. Get away! Vivian screamed. You ruined everything. I could have had all the money. And then dump me? Damien said easily. What a shame plan failed. He walked into the room and picked up a jewelry box from the nightstand. Oh, by the way, this jewelry stays too. It belongs to Margaret. Vivian suddenly put on a pitiful expression, looking at Damien with teary eyes. Damien, please. We can start over. I was just temporarily confused. Damien burst out laughing. Really? Terrible acting, honey. Did you also tell Alexander you loved him like this? Too bad he's busy explaining document forgery to the police now. Vivian collapsed crying. That money is mine. Dad wanted to give it to me. No, that money was Edmund's, now it's Margaret's. Damien calmly took out a document. This is the divorce agreement. I've already signed it. Given your fraud and adultery, the court will support my claim to all joint property. He threw the document on the bed. Oh, and your credit cards have been frozen. After all, auditors understand every corner of the financial system. Vivian's eyes were full of hatred. You'll regret this. Everyone will regret this. Damien walked to the door, looking back at her once, his eyes cold. You know what auditors hate most, Vivian? Not mistakes, but deception. Everyone makes mistakes, but only real assholes systematically deceive and expect not to be caught. He smiled. You not only deceived me, but also your mother and your father's last wishes. So this isn't personal vendetta, it's a matter of principle. Vivian sobbed. I'll spend years in prison. My whole life is over. Damien walked toward the door, looking back at her one last time. Remember, Vivian, you didn't lose everything because of the affair. That was just what made me start investigating. You lost everything because of greed and deception. That's an interesting accounting principle, isn't it? In the end, all accounts must be settled. I hate you, Vivian said through gritted teeth. If I get the chance, I'll make you pay. Damien laughed. Get in line, honey. There are many people ahead of you who want revenge on me. Those company executives I audited for fraud. But don't worry, I left you a special gift. What gift? Vivian asked warily. I edited your and Alexander's wonderful performances into a 5-minute video with interesting background music and commentary. I didn't post it online, but I submitted it as evidence to the court. So now, the judge, jury, bailiffs, even the stenographer, have all seen your performance. Damien sneered. You know how they rated it? General consensus was that Alexander's performance was particularly disappointing. Vivian's face changed from pale to deep red, shame and anger intertwined. She wanted to fight back, but ultimately could only sit there powerlessly, completely collapsed. When Damien walked out of the courthouse, he saw Margaret and Winston waiting for him. Is it over? Margaret asked. Damien nodded. It's over. How do you feel? Winston asked with concern. Damien thought for a moment, then smiled. Relief, like after auditing a complex fraud case, finally getting all the numbers straightened out. 6 months later, Damien stood in his new office, overlooking the entire city. He had been promoted to vice president of a major audit firm, heading the entire fraud investigation department. Vivian's case made him an industry star. His professional ability and calm handling of complex situations impressed the company's senior management. Edmund's estate had been completely transferred to Margaret, with Damien as trust advisor helping her manage this wealth. Within the company, a new nickname began circulating, cold-blooded auditor. Because Damien's cases never had errors, his analysis was coldly precise, like an emotionless computer. But only a few people knew what personal story was hidden behind this nickname. Damien's new assistant knocked and entered. Mr. Damien, Agent Julian Reeves is here to see you. Julian walked in, carrying a bottle of good wine. Here to celebrate, he smiled. Alexander Hayes finally confessed to the entire money laundering network. Thanks to your preliminary investigation, we took down 3 criminal organizations' funding chains. Damien accepted the wine. Consider it my small contribution. Far more than a small contribution, Julian said seriously. By the way, I have news to tell you. We discovered Vivian was being used by Alexander. She knew some things, but not everything. Alexander was actually using her to get close to Edmund's wealth. Damien raised an eyebrow. Are you saying she's innocent? Julian shook his head. No, she's definitely guilty. But she was more greedy and stupid than a real criminal mastermind. Actually, Alexander had a series of such girlfriends. He used them to get close to wealthy people. Damien sneered. This doesn't surprise me. Vivian always excelled at being blinded by money. Julian asked curiously, do you ever regret it? Destroying her so thoroughly? Damien looked out the window, thought for a while, then shook his head. Not at all. You know why? Why? Because betrayal isn't a momentary mistake, but a series of choices. Vivian could have chosen to stop at every step. When she decided to cheat, when she decided to kick out her own mother, when she decided to forge documents, when she decided to transfer our joint property. But every time she chose to continue. This isn't making mistakes. This is character defect. Julian nodded. Indeed so. He raised his wine glass. To justice. To numbers. Damien smiled in response. They never lie. After Julian left, Damien stood by the window, looking at the city's night view. He remembered the moment when everything began, when he heard Vivian and her lover's conversation in the bedroom. That pain had disappeared, replaced by a calm satisfaction. His phone rang. It was Margaret. Damien, can you come for dinner? Winston made your favorite roast beef. Of course, Damien smiled. I'd be happy to. When Damien arrived at Edmund's house, now Margaret's house, he found the house lit with warm lights. Margaret and Winston were preparing dinner in the kitchen. This feeling of home was something he never had with Vivian. "You're here," Margaret smiled as she greeted him. "I received a letter from the prison today. Vivian wants me to visit her." Damien raised an eyebrow. "Are you planning to go?" Margaret shook her head. "No, at least not now. Maybe someday I'll forgive her, but not now." She handed Damien an envelope. "This is for you." Damien opened the envelope. Inside was a court document. All of Vivian and Alexander's assets had been confiscated. Part would be given as compensation to victims, including Margaret and Damien. "This is a kind of poetic justice, isn't it?" Margaret said. Damien nodded. "Indeed, using what Vivian cared about most, money, to punish her." During dinner, they talked about future plans. Margaret decided to donate part of the inheritance to charity, especially organizations that help elderly people prevent financial fraud. Damien supported her decision and offered to help establish a more systematic monitoring mechanism. "Edmund would be proud of you," Margaret said to Damien. "Not only because you protected me, but because you didn't let Vivian's betrayal destroy you. Instead, you became stronger." Damien smiled. "That's an unexpected gain. Honestly, when I discovered Vivian's betrayal, I thought my world collapsed. But now I almost want to thank her." "Thank her?" Margaret asked in surprise. "Yes," Damien nodded. "If not for her betrayal, I might never have discovered my true potential. I might have always been an ordinary auditor, living with a woman who didn't love me. Now I got a better position, clearer life goals, and also—" He looked at Margaret and Winston. "A real home." Winston raised his wine glass. "To new beginnings." They clinked glasses. Damien felt an unprecedented peace in his heart. He remembered Vivian once mocked him for being just an auditor. Now this just an auditor not only shattered her conspiracy, but also sent her to prison, while his own career soared. Life was indeed full of irony sometimes, and for Damien, the sweetest revenge wasn't watching Vivian suffer, but watching himself live better after her betrayal. After dinner, Damien drove home, passing the apartment he and Vivian once lived in. It had been sold, belonging to a past life. He didn't stop, but continued forward, driving toward his new apartment, a place without betrayal and lies. In the car, he received a text from Julian. Alexander formally pleaded guilty. Sentence increased to 5 years. Vivian collapsed when she found out. Damien didn't reply, just put his phone back in his pocket. That no longer mattered. For him, that chapter was closed. A week later, Damien received a strange email. The sender was Vivian's prison ID number. He hesitated for a moment, then opened it. Inside were only a few lines. "You won, I lost. But don't get too proud, Damien. Every day for the rest of my life, I'll think about how to get revenge on you. Someday, I'll make you pay." Damien laughed, took out his phone to photograph this letter, then forwarded it directly to Julian with a message. "Looks like our Vivian hasn't learned her lesson. Threatening an ex-husband? Really smart move." Julian replied, "I'll let the prison authorities know about this. Her parole might be delayed." Damien nodded satisfactorily, tore up the letter and threw it in the shredder. Vivian still didn't understand a simple truth. Never play mind games with someone smarter than you, especially when this person sees every move you make clearly. When he entered his new apartment, he saw a document on the table, a new fraud case he was handling. He poured a glass of whiskey, sat down and began working. Numbers danced before his eyes, telling another story of deception and betrayal, waiting for him to reveal the truth. Damien smiled, thinking, people might lie, but numbers never will. And as an auditor, his job was to bring truth to light. Some say revenge is a dish best served cold. But for Damien, the best revenge was living better. Vivian lost everything: family, freedom, wealth, reputation, while Damien gained new life. This contrast itself was the most perfect balance. After all, in life's great ledger, every debt would eventually be settled. And Damien, as a shrewd auditor, ensured that Vivian paid the price for each of her betrayals.
That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.